over. She unmuted it. Okay, we should be good. All righty. Hey, let me start again. Hi, everybody. I am Stephanie, your community manager here at Roll20. If you're just joining us, we are celebrating you, the Roll20 community, with a 24-hour live stream. We've been going since midnight last night. Tons of really cool stuff. And this is the GMing on Roll20 panel. I'm going to jump and let everybody talk about themselves in a second. But if you have questions for us, make sure you at Roll20 app in chat. We'll talk about those later. And remember, we are raising money for Cybersmile. So you definitely have to check that out. Check out our donation page. There's links in the chat. And we will hopefully raise some good money for them. And we'll talk about what that's going to look like at the end of the show. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and let our GMs introduce themselves. And if you could just tell us your favorite system and a little bit about your history. And if you know how many hours you have in Roll20, which if you're in your account at all, it's just right there on your games page. And then maybe why you use Roll20. If you keep it kind of short, we'll do those quick introductions. So Adam, I think you should start since you are our GM in residence.
Yeah, I'm all looking up my hours in Roll20 now. Yeah. As soon as you said that, there's this like frantic clicking of keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Adam Coble. You might recognize me from such games as Swan Song, Roll20 Presents The Burning Wheel, Old School Adventures, and many, many more. I feel like asking a GM what their favorite role-playing game system is a cruel question, and it's not fair, but I'm going to answer anyway. It changes pretty wildly from day to day. Most of the time. No, listen. I mean, yes, everybody in chat is throwing Burning Wheels at me. Right now, Burning Wheel is easily my favorite system and has been for a while. But honestly, I think that when I'm playing a game, when I'm like at the table doing the thing, that's my favorite system. Whatever I'm playing right now, that's the game that I love the most. And if I'm playing a game I don't love, then I'm screwing something up. My hours played in Roll20 appears to be 1,185 hours.
Nice.
Which is not bad considering that I've really only been using Roll20 for like 2 years, I guess. Big dramatic spike at the end there. I do 4 campaigns a week, give or take now. And for a lot of them, like Fantasy Flight Star Wars or Burning Wheel, I like the fact that the API and that Roll20 generally makes a bunch of the math easier because I am a math dummard. I cannot do. People will do basic math in front of me, and I'll be like, "How did you number that? I don't what." So it's nice because I can focus on all the other stuff. Yeah, and I like being able to engage with a bunch of people, and Roll20 has made that possible for me. I've played more games with more people in the last year than I think like the rest of my life combined. So cool.
Very cool. Well, I will. I'll throw it down. I'll just go in order of how I can see you. So Neil, I don't know how we're set up on camera. I'm just in the Zoom call, but you're next in my little list here. So take it away.
Well, I'm Neil, or Koibu, as people call me, and my favorite system is hands down 2nd edition. I feel the exact opposite from Adam on this one. I have been a hardline 2nd edition D&D fan from the moment I started.
I think you will find over the next hour that that phrase will come up again.
Yeah, and that's just been, for me, it's the best of all worlds possible. It gives you lots and lots of math to do. Which is frustrating as hell, and Roll20 is really helpful with that when you're rolling a lot of dice and you're trying to do all the math of, oh yeah, well this fireball does about 6d6 damage, and I only have 5d6s in front of me, so unlimited dice, wonderful thing. I kind of actually forgot the other questions. What were they?
How many hours do you have?
Ooh, 3,000.
And you basically just checked on the why you use it. Math. That's pretty much everybody's answer. Math.
I really like the drawable screens, because that's the hardest thing to really recreate in an online system. Is not the math, it's the drawing the map. Well, I just need to make a quick doodle here for this person, and having those screens that you can just flip between and set up well in advance and kind of like move your players around. No, I take that back. That's not my favorite feature. My favorite feature is the music, the tabletop audio interface, which is the best thing ever. That like changes your D&D games from a couple of friends sitting around a table to a much more immersive environment. The tabletop audio immersion is the best. That's my favorite feature.
I was really excited when we changed that jukebox feature up this last time and added the layering effect. I thought that was like huge for us.
Oh, it's so great.
Awesome. Well, Naja, coming down to you. And you can just jump right in. I don't need to speak.
Well, I'm Naja Otikor. If you've been watching since this morning, I've played 2 games for Roll20CON. Outside of this convention, I GM Misclick's D&D Prophecy for the Misclick's channel. My favorite system right now, given that I am a baby GM, is Stars Without Number, and which I run for my real-life friends on Roll20. My hours in Roll20, which is the same amount of time as my hours GMing, is 600. And why do I use Roll20? My friends are everywhere. I have a lot of friends I met on the internet, and I have a lot of friends that I met in college that I play games with, and none of them are in the same city as me. So without Roll20, I wouldn't really be able to play with them at all, and I would have to go to like the bar or the game store and meet people, and I'm terribly introverted.
That's so funny. I love that we all have this kind of like introverted nature, but then I think about like how you and I met, which was literally like, hi, we're going to work together. That's okay. Sounds great.
Sometimes I'm like really gangster and coming up to Stephanie and being like, I want to do Misclicks. A pretty gangster moment in my life.
I love it. It was awesome. I'm so glad you did. So last but not least, of course, is Steven. And take it away.
Hi, I'm Steven. You can find me on the internet as Silent Osiris on Twitch, Twitter, all the places. You probably know me. I've run games like Roleplay The West Marches, Misclick's D&D Nummergeist, a couple of one-shots for Misclicks, Pendragon, the R&D series over on Roleplay, all sorts of great stuff. My hours played in Roll20 is 1,093, so Naja, you are crushing it, because I've been doing this for 2 or 3 years now. And my favorite system is any one where I can turn Neil into a madman in the forest.
You know, to this day, I get Mad Saxon people in chat every week or so.
I saw some people in the current chat talking about the Mad Saxon. So yeah, I love King Arthur Pendragon. I just love it. I think it's great. And of course, I love many other systems. What do I know? What do I use Roll20 for? Why do I like it the most? I like it. I mean, like, I use it because I became employed by a person who was using it, right? Like, that's how I got into it. But it's super convenient to connect people from all over the world and let all of us disparate people play role-playing games together. And it's fantastic. So
you have the challenge too of trying to get people who don't know shit about role-playing games to learn how to play a game for a short period of time. And like, yeah, I'm gonna play a wizard. What do my spells do?
And actually,
read this. They
Roll20, the way that we've set up the West Marches in Roll20 is that I have character sheets that fill in a lot of the information for the players. So all they have to do is remember what button to push, which is a lot easier than remembering the rules of the game. Let me tell you, as I can attest, as the flawless GM who never messes up any of the rules, right?
Right.
It's actually
that's actually a good transition. I'm sorry, Adam, but I'll let you talk as soon as I'm done. That's a good transition into one of the questions on our Roll20 stuff, which is how does Roll20 make being a GM easier? So let's continue on with that conversation and go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, what I use it for is I've added one of the character sheets for 5th edition D&D to our West Marches game, and because of the West Marches, we used to be operating on a 1-session cycle where we bring on a group of streamers for 1 session, play with them, and then the next group would be a completely different group. And oftentimes we'd have streamers who either hadn't played for weeks or like it was their first time playing ever, and allowing us to make a character fairly quickly in Roll20, have people's character sheets there so that they never lose them, and also having it be like a button press to take actions on their character sheets is all really smooth, and it makes the process of getting that kind of game set up and running far easier than it otherwise would be. So that's been really a huge advantage. What about you three?
Sorry, my audio was muted. I was going to help transition.
I would say dynamic lighting. I'm usually a theater of mind sort of person, but if I'm not going to do theater of mind, I want my maps to have limited vision for my different players. And if they're in different rooms at different times, they should see different things. And I really like keeping that player information separate. So the dynamic lighting for me is amazing.
I thought of another thing that is actually really nice about Roll20, which is not specific to the Roll20 API or anything like that, but nowadays I have a really hard time running a role-playing game without my computer, because I keep so many tools up on my second monitor where I have like name generators or magic item generators, or like, you know, the Kobold Fight Club Encounter Builder for 5th edition, or just all sorts of stuff over there where I'm just like, well, my players went to this place and I need an encounter for them and it should be really hard, so let me just like add 10 kobolds and, you know, 2 wizards, and then like blam, spit out an encounter. And nowadays when I try to role play offline, I have to have like my laptop or my tablet or whatever nearby so that I can retain my access to those tools that I use so often. So Roll20 has expanded what the technology that I'm able to bring to bear as a game master in order to, I think, take my DMing to the next level.
Yeah, I find for me, like, my memory is really bad. So having a record of like all the rolls that were made, especially in a game like Burning Wheel, where you have to record the type of roll you made and what difficulty you rolled against so your character can advance, being able to go back 1 or 2 sessions and be like, oh yeah, you failed that sword roll way back when. That stuff's really helpful for me, being able to contain and store all that information, because God knows I can't keep it up here. So putting it on the computer helps for sure.
Yeah, character sheets are amazing. Shout out to everybody that makes them.
Yes, that is the Roll20 community at large. We do have a few official ones, but the majority of the ones on the site are definitely made by some amazing volunteers. So,
like, the Burning Wheel character sheet is god tier for playing that game. I would not have tried to run it pen and paper without a lot of like studying of it, but I was just kind of like, hey, I just got this book and I've never played it before, but we're just gonna do it, whatever, YOLO, like what's the worst that can happen?
YOLO.
That's
should be Yogo, you only GM once.
Yogmo.
Yeah, Yogmo.
I will take that. I coin it. But yeah, I was just, and none of my players had played before either. But we just sat down with the character burner and the character sheet, and we're like, this is basically right. This is enough to start with. Let's do it. So yeah, character sheets are my favorite things.
You know what else I saw someone else in the role-playing on Twitch community do recently? Wolves Go Roar, and if some of you in chat know him, he
was actually in our 10 a.m. game with
nice
and Adam this morning. They played 13th Age. So
well, he set up for his own Twitch D&D stuff. He set up like large backgrounds for a forest so that he could drop his players onto a forest map and then have encounters, like random encounters, just on different parts of that forest map. And I saw that and I was like, oh damn, I need to get on that. That would be really useful for the West Marches. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff.
But Steven, then we wouldn't get your cool squiggly trees and your shittily drawn walls.
I know that you would miss that.
I love them so much.
They're so clear and everybody really understands what's going on. Yeah.
Neil, did we hear from you on that? What makes it easier?
I think I chimed in with, and I've already forgotten what I've chimed in with.
Well, then if you feel like you did, then it's fine. I just couldn't remember.
Well, let me add in the GM layer is really nice. Being able to keep notes in the GM layer, like arrows and signs and symbols and all your little things, and move them back and forth.
Yeah, I used the GM layer like crazy for Old School Adventures, because we had the Caves of Chaos map on the GM layer, and then as the characters were exploring, I would let them draw onto the map. So in Old School D&D, a big part of the game is mapping and like describing something to the players and then having them draw the map. And it was funny for the audience because in places when the players were drawing the map, it would go off in the wrong direction, or like the room would not be shaped the correct way.
Because they were able to see your GM layer, right, Adam?
Yeah. Audience could see. They were like co-GMing with me. So there are places where I think and I guess that's an interesting point, right? Is that Roll20 as a tool has allowed us to do some neat things with making role-playing into a spectator sport. That if it was just cam view, or like I've watched shows where people are playing at the table D&D, and it's okay, right? Like you still get the audio and you get the faces, and it's all very kind of like radio play and stuff, but it's nice being able to share some of the more granular stuff, right? To have everyone hang on anticipation of that roll, or be able to watch a map get built, or watch encounters. And the GM layer, to Neil's point, is fun for that, because you can be like, okay, you walk into a room and I make I make an encounter table roll, and they're like, oh, this room has 46 kobolds in it. But the characters can't see it yet because they can only see the beginning of the room, but the audience can see the kobolds hiding around the corner. And so they get that sort of sense of dramatic irony. And I think that's a thing that's, nigh impossible to do in just at the table environment. There are lots of little things that we get as GMs that can create a sort of audience incorporation vibe that I think is really neat.
Very, very true. We are edging on our halfway, which is when I wanted to transition into social topics. But before we go there, I would love to hear from you guys. You already touched on your favorite features, so I won't go there. But how about what do you want to see from us? So we talked. Hold on. We talked about kind of how easy it is to have access to your computer, and that made me think of like. For the we have the compendium that we just launched. So if you use the SRD5 character sheet, that now puts all the SRD5 compendium rules right in your game. So one feature from each of you, what would you love to see? And I'll take notes. And we will start with you, Neil.
Okay, so I have this vision of this amazing thing, and I think Roll20 could build it out and it'd be beautiful. But you already have video and voice interface. So if everyone's got a character sheet assigned to them, you can have a languages tag section, and the GM, if they say they want to speak in Goblin, they can press a little button and their voice becomes garbled for any player whose character sheet does not have the language Goblin attached to it. So you can speak to your players in Goblin, and only people that can hear it can hear it. That's my thought, because then it would be amazing.
That's pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
It is amazing.
That would be amazing, because then you can speak to your players in Goblin, and the audience can hear you speaking in Common or English or whatever. Or if you want, you can garble it for your audience too. And then then they switch to Hobgoblin. The players really, the player replies in Hobgoblin. The GM hears it, and little speaking in Hobgoblin shows up for the DM, and that sort of thing. That would be, I think, that would really help that separation of what players know from one another. So you don't have to be like, all right, nobody hears this except for this player. The Goblin tells you blah, blah, blah. And then the players say, okay, yeah, whatever. I tell everyone everything. And so everyone knows everything. And I like that, being able to separate what individuals players know and what individual characters know more would be stellar.
So basically the idea of really trying to kind of put more of as if we were in a movie, right? Having actual acting kind of features put out for people who maybe not necessarily are that creative, because I wouldn't even know what to do if somebody told me to speak in Goblin or whatever.
Right. But then
I love it. Naja, how about you?
I feel like I've barely tapped Roll20 in a lot of ways. Maybe I think the text, the way you type into pages, is suboptimal. I would definitely love to have support for some of the GMing pages that people use. I use a lot of fronts across mini games that I play, and having and this is maybe more for the community, but having an API built character sheet for a front would be tremendous. I
bet we could probably talk to the Aaron about that and see what the Aaron is one of our moderators, and he's basically, whenever you're on the forums, if you say I need an API script, he will show up 5 minutes later and have the entire thing made for you. So that's fun. Can you say it? What was it again? API, what was the word you used?
Character sheet in quotes for fronts.
That was what it was.
Yeah, well, because more and more games are including worksheets and stuff for GMs, right? Apocalypse World and Dungeon World, and even things I'm always excited when I see a game that incorporates a GM encounters sheet, or some sort of miscellaneous stuff that uses the same infrastructure. The Star Wars stuff uses that, and you can go in and edit mission details and keep track of NPCs. And you have all your own little sub tabs, which is super cool. Yeah.
Adam, do you want to continue on this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I just want character sheets for more games, right? Like,
right.
all of these character sheets for all of this. Just go right in. It's only like several hundred character sheets. Because that for me, I'm becoming more and more, I don't want to say reliant, but like I like using the built-in tools and roll macros and stuff for games when I play. And it's become very much like, okay, is there a character sheet for this in Roll20? If no, okay, you're going to go back on the maybe pile. I'm going to find a game that has one. So, that's a thing that I obviously lack the skills to do, or I would be doing it myself. Like a big broad character sheet database on top of like little things like Nadja said, like the drawing tools and stuff. I come from using Photoshop, and so when I move over to Roll20, I'm like, I can draw lines and I can like mouse art. So obviously making it a fully fleshed out like graphic editor is a lot of stuff, but like even just being able to drop in like index cards, because a lot of like small press games use index cards for some reason. There's a weird index card fetishism among indie games.
or even just being able to represent dice and other physical tabletop objects like index cards or like tarot cards or things that like go down on the table or get passed back and forth between people.
Yeah. I'm normally very anti-skeuomorphism, but there are instances in which it's useful as a design technique, purely because we're playing things that are designed to be played IRLs with physical objects, which makes it hard to translate directly.
One thing in like Fiasco, if you're trying to manage a dice pool in the middle of your table, that's clearly designed for meat space play.
Yeah.
More challenging to deal with that.
Yeah, and you can click and drag each individual die, but that, it's a thing. Yeah.
So
go ahead, Steve.
My number one update to Roll20 would be like, how to be kind. Like 95%.
We asked for feedback. We're not going to be, you're all doing great.
Like 95% of the UI UX of working within the thing. Like, God, like there was a period of time there where I was still getting all my monsters and tokens set up, and then like having to like copy tokens in and like assign the token to the character sheet, and then take the character sheet assigned to the token and then like select the token on the tabletop.
Streamlining steps really is what you're talking about, right?
There was a recent episode of West Marches where you placed a monster on the board and it had a little like skull with an A on it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. How did you make Roll20 do that? And you just looked at me like, shut up, don't ask.
Yeah, stop.
I could see you had put some work into it.
Yeah. And like, so like that's a huge complicated thing. And then like there was like a huge challenge with setting up a macro to like automatically roll initiative and having to like select the token so that it rolls initiative for you. I would love to be able to like have someone, I'm going beyond one feature. I'd love to be able to like assign other people visibility on layers, because I'm not the one running production.
That's a good idea.
I could assign visibility of the layer to JP so that JP could see the GM layer. Then I could run shows where the entire audience can see the GM side of things, whereas like my players can only see the player side or something like that. So like, bunch of little things.
Hey, and I think that's important though, because we, when Roll20 started, I really doubt that they were thinking this is for Twitch, you know what I mean? And so we've transitioned over time, and obviously with me coming in, we were able to put a more heavy focus on the community, and we were able to start doing all this fun Twitch stuff. So I think it's super important because, we all started with misclicks, just kind of like, what is this tool? Let's figure out how to use it. And the cool thing about, Roll20 is we are so small that the reason we asked for your feedback here is because this is the kind of stuff that we're literally, our developer is here, and we can, share it with him. So I'm going to,
one more small thing.
No problem.
For assets, like if you purchase a pack of whatever's, not having to scroll down and down and down and down until you get to your purchases, but being able to go, this pack that I purchased and drag.
Well, good news. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but that actually is, and we've announced it. Our next update is an overhaul to the art library.
Oh, thank God.
So that is on our priority list. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. And I'll get some insight from our developers and kind of share you some information.
While we're just on this,
we want to move on to social, so be fast. I'm excited about these.
I have bought in Meat Space like thick cardstock tiles of tileable like terrain, basically, where it's sort of like screen printed terrain things, and you can set them up and sort of like tile around and look good. And I love those. And I've never really felt like Roll20 had a strong library of environment art and monster art that I can use. This is just pure personal preference, but I don't find the monster art that's available on Roll20 right now super appealing to me personally. And I don't know what the challenge would be to like get.
I mean, that's our community. I think the important thing to note is because we're there's a lot in there, and I think maybe we just need to try to figure, like, with our changes to the art library, is figuring out a way to make sure it's easier to find things in the marketplace, because that's something that we've struggled with before. But I think that I would love to, rather than I would love to challenge that, and when we're not on stream, and see if I could find you some things, because I think that there's a lot more stuff than maybe we've looked at before. So
absolutely, I mean,
Stephen has very particular taste.
Right. So I mean, and that's fair. That's
also
fair.
True.
But I want to transition us into the other one, and we're done, Neil. You can tell me later.
Okay.
So let's go social topics, because it's a little bit more fun and not so much as me feeling criticized right now. So I'm just kidding. So let's talk about what it's like to be a GM in a live environment. These are Adam's notes a little bit. So RPGs as entertainment is the first one, Adam, that you mentioned. So if you want to kind of let us roll with that, and everybody can just jump in where they need.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of core thing to look at here is that RPGs were not designed or intended to be viewed by anyone except the people playing them. And I think that whether we admit to it or not, we're affected by that in the way that we GM, whether it's from moment to moment or over the long term of a campaign. We have people watching, we know there's an audience, and these audiences tend to, like with most of the content they absorb through a venue like Twitch, they like to get involved. Right? So for me, this question was kind of about being curious about how that affects everybody's GMing style, and how, knowing that you have an audience, knowing that there's this like direct feedback route, how that has affected the way you prep or the way you play. Yeah, so that was kind of my thought, and I'll save how I feel about it till last. But
it's been really interesting. I have switched from doing all of my prep in private to doing all my prep in public, and all of my game prep is done on stream, which has been very rewarding, because I get to interact with people and we get to discuss ideas, and I think it's improved my DMing style, whichever you prefer. Just by having the influx of ideas. But it's also encroached on some awkward territory, where if I prep publicly, sometimes people start dropping serious hints about what has been prepped in advance. Now, it hasn't been too bad. It's only really come up once or twice, but that has been an interesting aspect of it. But it definitely has changed the way I prep. Insane.
Yeah, Stephen, you're doing like West March's prep online too, and like I do the Swansong GM turn online, which is a bit different, but. So do you find the same thing with your prep, Stephen?
Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I think it still happens. Like, people in chat will be like, "Oh my God, the door! Oh my God, the door!" And like, my players will be like, "Oh, what's behind the door?" And like, I know that they probably all have Twitch on the other screen and are probably all seeing the comments in chat, but I don't find that it affects play in the style of game that I run, at least. Like, I
mean, it's a bit the dramatic irony thing again, right? Like, you want the players to. It's like watching a horror movie, right? You want chat to know the players are about to bungle into something bad, and the people that you tend to play with in West Marches tend to be the kind of people who play for the audience already. Yes. So even if they know, like, oh, I probably shouldn't open this door, they're like, I'm gonna open the door, Steven.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so that's the thing. Like, I think that's just a GMing style difference between the kinds of games that Neil likes to run versus the kinds of games that I like to run. I like to run games that are much more specifically about that sort of theatricality. Like, you know, I consider myself and my players, we are all on a stage. It's a virtual stage, but nevertheless, we're on a stage. And like, I trust my players to sometimes make stupid decisions for their characters because it's going to be more fun for the audience. Like, you know, for example, when some sort of multi-tentacled god aspect comes drifting down from the heavens, and I'm like, no, don't you run. That shit.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, I think that the style of game Neil likes to run is one where like players really their information is limited to what they were able to find out in game, and it's perhaps, you know, I wouldn't say it's the opposite side, but it is more in the direction of playing a game based on, you know, player ingenuity and, you know, trying to keep themselves alive.
Yeah, I have some games that I run, one right now and a second one maybe coming up soon, where if the player's character dies, they're off the show and they're just gone. So when the players are being told by the chat, oh, this item does this, or this was dangerous, don't do that, I find it can get really in the way with my prep.
Yep.
Well, D&D relies on a pretty heavy, like, sudden surprise fuck you element sometimes too, right? Where if you know that the +2 sword is cursed, you're not going to pick that thing up. But a lot of it is like, oh, guess what? Time for a saving throw. You're dead. Yep. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, like, well, like Naja, you probably have the closest comparison, because I don't know, like, Steven, do you do a lot of running of games offline?
I have, not these days. I don't, but I certainly have.
And, like, Neil, are you running like a lot offline? Yeah, exactly.
Not
so
these days, no.
Me neither. So Naja, you've got a campaign going in both venues, right?
One of them is a Misclicks one. The other one is streamed, but like the viewers are us.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not very heavily promoted, so it might as well be offline in a lot of ways. I don't really have a difference. I started playing tabletop games in the Mascot TeamSpeak, actually.
Nice.
And people would just hop in and listen. And so there's always kind of this hypothetical or actual audience for me. I don't do prep publicly because I am, to be quite honest, a fly by the seat of my pants GM.
Word.
And I tend to work backwards in a lot of ways. To use a concrete example, in Prophecy, the rogue in the party decided to rob the inn and found 3 gold in the inn in this podunk town, which is a ton of money for that situation. And I was like, why do they have so much money?
Yeah.
Maybe they're paying protection money. Who are they paying protection money to? Bandits. Okay. And so the players went off, did some other things. They came back and the town had been ransacked by bandits because they took the protection money. And that was a completely ass backwards way to come about with that storyline. But
the illusion of prep is as valuable as actual prep.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that I split the line there. Like, I prep some things, and then players are always like, oh, are you going to do prep this week? And I'm like, no way. We have more than enough to finish out the quest line. And then, like, I'll prep a framework, and then I'll fly by the seat of my pants within it.
Yeah, if I was doing prep shows for Mirror Shades, people would have expected them a lot more often than they would have got them. Like, they would have been 3 hours of show there for the whole campaign, because sometimes games go off in that weird direction. Yeah, I think that's interesting, because traditionally GMing has that aspect of like lonely fun, and when you do it with an audience, like when I was doing my prep live every week, I did an hour of we did a show called Post Apocalypse World, where I would like go over the fronts and like talk about what had happened and kind of advance the fronts and stuff. And a lot of it became like easier for me to do because I had an audience and they were all invested in the game. And people were like, oh, what if this? What if that? And so you can kind of just like mine them for it. Chat is a random table, really. Like it's as useful in that regard. You just get a bunch of information and you just pick the things that seem interesting and roll those into your.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
do you guys feel? I know you have games where sometimes you don't allow chat to be involved, and some games where you do, because I've seen both from most of you. But do you guys prefer one way or the other, interacting with the audience while you're gaming? Do you find it is rather distracting?
I think audience interaction is really interesting. Actually, it's one of the things I really like about Adam's games is the ways that he strives to involve the audience, whether it's through GM prep or through letting them vote on things or whatever, or showing them the GM side of things. I think it's really cool, and I think I'd certainly like to do more of it, but it's very challenging to pull off when you're not the one in charge of like everything about production. It's harder. And as Adam sort of mentioned originally, the games that are made right now are not made for an audience structure.
It's true.
So, and even looking in the video game space, there are very few games that leverage the kind of audience that Twitch.tv is able to bear on a game. And we're just now starting to see innovation in that space on, if you have 4,000 people watching you play, how can they change the game? How can they impact it in an interesting way that doesn't ruin the experience?
I mean, I've seen games that go, I think, to an extreme that I personally as a GM would never be able to go to, where it's like every few minutes they're pausing to like straw poll something, or and in my experience, the games that rely really heavily on that don't tend to have that kind of creative director cohesion that a GM brings to the table. And I think that's definitely a risk of GMing with an audience, is that there is that risk to just turn everything over to the audience and be like, I don't know, I'm not going to make any decisions. I'm just going to like let you pick. And then you end up with like Bodie McBoatface, right? Like GMing by committee is not all.
Sorry, I just remembered where you got that from. That was funny. Sorry. I was like, wait, I know that story.
This is how you end up with like towns called Hitler was right. Like it's just not. We when we look to the mass like audience for that kind of input, I think that it can really derail things. Like I talk about all the time about how the GM kind of like, it's not an authority position, it's a director position, right? It's like saying, yes, okay, we're going to take all the input of the game and I'm going to make it all make sense together, but it doesn't diffuse or remove the value of any given input. There's got to be somebody at the switchboard deciding, where the call goes.
So this is actually just to divert very briefly.
I'm just going to say we have 5 minutes or 4 minutes left now, so we have to kind of wrap it up. It's a short panel, so go ahead though.
Just very briefly, this is why games like Apocalypse World, while I enjoy them very much, they're not my favorite, because they tend to have a much more wider amount of input from the table. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Chad, but I'm super picky about what goes into my settings. I'm a very picky guy, and people will like send me stuff and they'll be like, oh, this is super West Marches. And I'm like, I can see why you think that, but actually,
I think the thing with those games though is that like the ask questions, build on the answer part, it really, and I don't know, maybe because it's not clear in Apocalypse World, and we tried to clarify a little in Dungeon World. The idea is that you're only asking questions you're willing to let go of the answer for. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling that way, you can just ask more specific questions. Because I see what you mean though. Like, yeah.
So I think we can try to do this quickly if it's possible. So let's end with we'll go around the table and do like 30-second shout out about who you are, where people can find you, and then since we can't really talk about stories of a favorite moment, maybe if you can think of like you have a YouTube video out there that contains your favorite show that's on YouTube, maybe that you pre-recorded or something, so we can encourage people to go check out your stuff. So I'm going to start backwards. So Stephen, you start.
So I'm Silent Osiris. The O is a 0. The O is a 0. And you can find me on the internet everywhere at that. So Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, everything. Go find me. I don't think I really have anything like prepped for people to go look. But if you go,
I know the best one for you.
What is it?
Trial by Pi.
Oh, yeah. No, that's
Hello.
Awesome. Do you remember what episode that was?
It's called Trial by Pi.
Okay, so
or the one before it when it gets announced.
Yeah, if you search on Misclick's D&D Nummergeist for Trial by Pi and the episode before it, those are some of the highlights of my role-playing GMing career. Yeah. That's it.
Naja?
I am Naja Tikor. You can find me on Twitter at Trist_CHI. Find me on Twitter
code. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there's something. He just. Okay, cool. Okay.
I suppose we just jump to the vamp.
Well, the vamp contains a lot of those people, so
Right.
I want to bring them back and just let them do their shout outs, and we'll bring Anna in, and we can just open us up on a call.
So do you want to kick me out, or do you want me to?
If you just want to turn your video off and stay here, that would be the easiest.
Hello.
Hi, sorry about that. So we're gonna bring out everybody back to do shout outs. So we'll just wait until they all jump in, and
they can hear us. They can hear us.
Okay, yes. Great. That's awesome.
Cool.
We're not muted, so you guys can keep talking, and then whoever's on production computer will transition us live. So where were we? We were on.
I was.
Naja?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are
what was I saying? I was saying you can find me on Twitter at Tris_CHI. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/TrisDeray, wherein I play Overwatch and yell at the computer. I also have a YouTube channel with select choices from that stream, and my YouTube is TrisDeray as well.
Very cool. And Neil, right? Did we just see? We did Steve and Neil. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm Koibu on pretty much everything except for YouTube and Twitter, where it's Koibu0 because Google does not allow you to have 5 character names. And some random Japanese man took Koibu on Twitter and never uses it. I know, right?
Terrible.
Terrible, terrible. And I would say the 2 things to look out for me are Dicing with Death, which is a single-player 2nd edition game, which is really interesting because you only focus on that one player. It's a lot. You
do that with Chucky, right?
No, I do that with Ryan.
Oh, Ryan, that's right.
Ryan, yeah. So my old friend, we've been playing D&D for like 20 years together. And the other thing is Hardcore Heroes, which is the show I mentioned earlier, where if the character dies, the player is off the show. And so we started with 4, and now we have fewer. And it's
And Adam.
Yeah. Hi. So you can find me on Twitter at Skinny Ghost. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Adam Coble. And I'm here on Roll20 every Thursday and Friday running games, so you can check those out. And if you're looking for a highlight, gosh, I wish I had episode numbers for you, but the part of OSA where there's the torch cult, that was pretty fun. The last half hour of the 50th episode of Swan Song, or the entire Ballad of Brumpotungus.
Yeah,
Brumpo.
The Ballad of Brumpotungus might be my favorite team effort. Yeah.
Well, I'll do the same thing, and because I think I've played enough online now, and I have my favorite moment for sure. So I'm Stephanie, or Miss Avison on Twitter, and Roll20's community manager. Thank you guys for coming and joining us for this panel. Like I said, I said it on Twitter. I selfishly took this panel because I wanted to have a talk with all of you guys. So they're awesome people. And my favorite role playing moment is actually from when Neil, I think you were GMing this, when I had my first Avison and I just literally walked away in the middle. Everybody was up on top of a ladder. I thought this was a terrible idea and I was supposed to be holding a ladder. And they said, just figure out whenever you want to transition out. I was a guest. So I literally just looked up and then I said to Neil, I turn around and walk away.
That's great.
And I left them in the middle of the show and it was pretty fun. So
If people haven't watched it, the very first Roll20 presents that we did, the Apocalypse World one.
Oh yeah.
70's performance as the explosion was pretty much the best shit ever. So definitely,
it was a lot of fun. Cool. Well, with that, it was great having you guys. We're gonna jump into the vamp. So the easiest way to do this is we'll go off. We'll put the splash screen up really quick, and then we'll come right back with Adam and myself, and then the other guys are going to start Dungeon World in just a second. So hang tight, everybody. We'll be back in a moment.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.